In this video for PokerNews.com, we are going to see if Phil Hellmuth can withstand the heat that Tom Dwan brings on when, well, a whole lot of draws comes in, and then Tom fires the third bullet. This hand is from the High Stakes Duel that took place on PokerGO recently, featuring these two titans of poker. Phil Hellmuth decides to do the opposite of his classic zoom poker and limp in with the pocket tens. Tom Dwan checks, which I'm going to go ahead and say, the reason you don't really want to limp with the tens is because when you limp, your opponent can just check with whatever they have and see the flop and go from there. And if they do raise and you re-raise them, yeah, you get them to fold sometimes, but unless Tom Dwan's just being absolutely insane, which, you know, he seemed to mellow out over the last few years, you're just not going to get that limp re-raise in very often. So you probably just want to raise, Phil. That said, we do limp. Jack, 9-3, Tom checks. Seems like a fine spot to bet frequently and small. Phil Hellmuth does go for the one big blind bet. Sure. And now Tom Dwan check raises. It's always frustrating when you have the pocket tens on the Jack 9-3 board and get check raised because there are very few good turn cards, right? You'd much rather have a hand like 9-8 in this scenario because with a hand like 9-8, you have 5 outs to make 2 pair. Whereas with the pocket tens, you only have 2 outs to make a set. Now, if you do make a set, it's probably good, but you're not going to improve all that often. So the question is how aggressive is Tom Dwan check raising? Do we think Tom's going to check raise with only a jack or better? If he's that nitty, and old Tom Dwan really is dead, then you can just fold. That said, almost no one's that tight. We're playing heads up, no limit Texas style. This is a spot where Tom's going to have a lot of jacks. He's also going to have a lot of draws. And in this scenario, there are a ton of draws. I realize that the 2 tens actually do block a lot of the draws because you're not going to be against Queen 10 or King 10 or 10-8 or 10-7 nearly as often. But this is a spot where I think continue is mandatory, although it is not a great spot. Phil does call, turns a queen of spades. Tom bets again. Miserably annoying scenario. At this point, I have to presume Tom's going to be pretty polarized to something like a queen and better now. I mean, he could certainly have a hand like king-queen, right? Or queen 10, even though we do block the tens. Or a draw. And the draw that makes the most sense is the flush draw. The problem, though, is that Phil has the open-ended straight draw now. And with an open-ended straight draw, you just cannot really fold, especially when you still beat a lot of the draws. And I would not be the least bit surprised if Tom Dwan does show up with any flush draw in this scenario. So, Phil has a call. You may say, why not raise to try to price out the draws? The problem is that when you raise and your opponent continues, you're either going to be against a really good draw or you're going to be against a better hand that has you in bad shape. So there's no point in raising in this spot. River's the 6 of clubs. Flush draw comes in, and Tom half pots it. What do you do with the pocket tens? Take a second, pause the video, and write what you would do in the comment section below these pocket tens. Would you find the nitty fold? Would you call? Would you raise to 20,000? Or would you bump it up and go all in? Pause the video and write what you would do below. This is a tough spot because Tom bets small. When Tom bets small in this scenario, I think he's going to be weighted towards marginal made hands, like 2 pair and better. Maybe stuff like a queen. The question is could we ever bluff him? I don't think we want to even try, because if Tom is good, and he is going to put some flushes in his range that he's just not folding to a raise. Also, you really don't want to rip it all in, which would be a gigantic raise that would win the pot almost every time, because every once in a while, Tom's going to use this bet size with an ace-high flush or a king-high flush that obviously he's not going to fold. So I think the question becomes, should we call or should we fold in this scenario? And I think it's just an annoying spot to fold. I do think you're going to be shown a queen a lot, or maybe even a hand like king-jack a lot in this spot that's going for thin-ish value, which will often be the case when your opponent is going for something like half pot on the river. The question is, should we try to bluff? And I just don't think we should. And since we lose all the queens and the jacks, and Tom's probably not value betting a 9 this way, you take your 10s, and you throw them away. Is that what he does? Is that what Phil Hellmuth does? He does. Gives a speech. How does it happen every time? How does it happen every time? And, sure enough, it happened again. This time, he did happen to be against the king-high flush draw. Good thing he didn't rip it all in, huh? And somehow, Phil Hellmuth, the heads-up master, let's think about how this hand played out. Did he really play this hand close to perfectly the entire time? Obviously, if he knew he was against a flush draw, he could have, ripped it all in on the flop or something. But obviously, you would never do that. On the turn, just got a call. On the river, when Tom gets there, you find the fold. Perfect poker from the self-proclaimed GTO inventor, Phil Hellmuth. That's me for today. If you enjoyed this video, do me a favor, click the like and subscribe button below. Also click the notification bell. And I hope when you get the pocket tens, you do not get outdrawn by the old, young phenom. I'll talk to you next time.